Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into a pretty fascinating topic. It's all about masculinity.
Oh,
And specifically, we asked you guys on Reddit,
right.
what's the craziest thing you've heard that real men don't do?
Hmm.
And wow, did we get a lot of responses.
I know. I was really surprised, too, by the sheer range of things that came back.
Yeah, and just the variety.
Yeah.
From like hygiene to food to relationships.
It's like this question just unlocked something in people.
Yeah,
You know, it's like this Pandora's box of all these expectations around what it means to be a man today.
for sure. And I think for some people listening, this might be kind of their first time encountering some of these ideas.
Right.
So maybe we can kind of define some terms up front.
Yeah.
You've probably heard the term toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Basically, it's this idea that traditional like norms of manhood can actually be harmful,
Right.
because it pressures men to be aggressive or suppress their emotions or avoid anything that seems feminine.
Exactly. And when those expectations get all tangled up with someone's sexuality,
Yeah,
that's where homophobia comes in.
exactly. And it's important to remember that these aren't just like abstract concepts.
Oh, absolutely.
Like this stuff has real world consequences for men.
For sure.
It impacts their relationships and their self-esteem, even their mental health.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal. So to kind of give you a taste of what we're dealing with here,
Yeah.
let's just jump into some of the more outrageous examples from this Reddit thread.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, so we have multiple people saying that some men believe wiping thoroughly
Okay.
is gay.
What?
I know.
Like using toilet paper?
I know, it's wild.
That's wild.
What?
It's so basic.
I know. And it's interesting because when you dig a little deeper,
Yeah.
I think it reveals this underlying fear of being perceived as too meticulous or too concerned with grooming.
Yeah, like those are qualities that are traditionally seen as feminine. And it's like there's this anxiety about stepping outside of what's considered manly.
Right, and it gets weirder.
Okay, lay it on me.
One guy was talking about how his dad wouldn't let him use chapstick
Really?
because it made him look like a woman putting on lipstick.
Oh my gosh.
And then there were all these guys who won't eat bananas in public because of the shape.
Seriously.
Come on.
It's a fruit.
I know. It's like, what is going on?
It's like anything can become this battleground for these anxieties about masculinity.
Right.
Even a banana.
Yeah.
It can be a symbol of sexuality and gender roles.
It makes you wonder if it's not even about the object itself,
Right.
but more about this underlying need to constantly reaffirm their masculinity
Exactly.
through every single action and choice.
I think it speaks to this larger cultural trend where any deviation from these traditional masculine norms
Yeah.
is met with ridicule or even aggression.
Yeah, and sometimes that aggression comes from a place of internalized homophobia.
Right.
Like there's this one story about a guy who's lifting weights and he gets mocked for being around other sweaty men.
How can working out even be homophobic?
I know, it's crazy, and it shows just how deep these assumptions run.
Yeah.
If you don't conform, you're automatically seen as other or less than.
Absolutely. It's messed up.
Yeah, it is messed up.
You should be able to work out or eat a banana.
Or use chapstick.
Yeah, without people questioning your manhood.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
So it's interesting because then we have this comment
Okay.
from a Muslim South Asian listener,
Okay.
and he's saying that bidets are totally normal in his culture.
Right.
So it's like what's considered normal or manly
Yeah.
can be totally different depending on your background.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it reminds us that these notions of masculinity aren't like universal truths.
Right.
It's all socially constructed and shaped by culture and history.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, like, how do other societies around the world even define masculinity? Are there, like, common threads, or is it completely unique to each culture?
That's a great question. It's something we could totally do another deep dive on.
Definitely.
But getting back to this thread,
Okay.
it's not just about external appearances or behaviors.
Right.
There's also a lot of discussion about how men are discouraged from expressing emotions.
Yeah, it seems like the emotional landscape of masculinity can be just as restrictive.
Yeah.
A lot of the comments talk about men being ridiculed for crying or showing affection or even just talking about their feelings.
Like one story that really got to me
Yeah.
was about this guy who called his brother just to check on him during a divorce. Which, that's a pretty vulnerable time for anyone.
Totally.
And he gets mocked relentlessly.
Really?
Yeah, I gave a woman a marshmallow peep.
Oh my gosh.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is, because it shows how these expectations can actually prevent men from getting support when they need it most.
Right. They're trapped in this cycle of having to appear strong,
Yeah.
even when they're hurting.
And that emotional suppression, it doesn't just impact their personal lives.
Right.
It spills over into their romantic relationships, too.
Totally. There are comments suggesting that men shouldn't be the little spoon or
Yeah.
shouldn't enjoy giving oral sex.
Wow.
I know.
Really?
Or even openly express love for their partner.
It's like any sign of vulnerability or tenderness is automatically seen as weakness
Right.
or a lack of masculinity.
But here's the thing I found so interesting.
Okay.
There is some pushback
Oh, good.
against these restrictive norms within the thread itself.
Okay.
A lot of people are pointing out the paradox of this whole real man ideal.
What do you mean?
Like, isn't true masculinity about being self-assured
Right?
and doing what you want regardless of societal pressure?
Yeah.
Shouldn't a real man be secure enough in himself to express his emotions
Yeah.
and take care of his appearance and do whatever he enjoys without fear of judgment?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Like one guy was talking about how much he loves to bake, and another guy mentioned enjoying romantic comedies.
I love rom-coms.
Me too. And it's like they're both saying, yeah, I'm a man,
Right.
and I don't care if you think these things are unmanly.
It's so refreshing to see that.
Right.
That kind of defiance and self-acceptance.
It challenges these rigid definitions.
Yeah.
And it opens up space for a more nuanced understanding of masculinity.
I love that.
And then there's this awesome story
Okay, tell me.
about this guy who defends a teenager for getting mocked for drinking a cherry beer.
Seriously, a cherry beer.
Yeah, and the guy shuts down the bully
Good for him.
by saying a real man drinks whatever he likes.
Preach.
I know. It's like, yes.
That's amazing.
It's such a good example of challenging those norms
Totally.
and advocating for individual choice.
Right. It's like, let people enjoy what they enjoy.
Yeah,
Without imposing your limited definitions of masculinity on them.
exactly.
I like that.
So we've covered a lot here.
Wait.
We've seen this crazy range of activities that are deemed unmanly.
It's why.
The homophobia tied to these expectations
Yeah.
and the internal conflict these norms create for men.
Absolutely.
But we've also seen this push for a more inclusive understanding of masculinity.
Right.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Definitely.
But this thread gives us a really interesting glimpse into how people are grappling with these questions.
For sure.
And it raises some thought-provoking questions about what it even means to be a man today.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, if so many everyday things are emasculating,
Right.
what does it even mean to be a real man today?
Exactly. Is that concept even relevant anymore?
Like, are we holding on to these outdated definitions
Yeah.
that don't serve us anymore?
It feels like it sometimes.
Because reading through these comments,
Yeah.
I get the sense that a lot of men are struggling with these expectations.
For sure.
Like, they're trying to navigate this minefield of what's acceptable.
Right. And what's not.
And it can be so confusing.
And frustrating.
Yeah, and it can lead to feelings of inadequacy or shame, even self-hatred.
Yeah, like if you're constantly being told that expressing your emotions
Yeah.
makes you less of a man,
Right.
it's going to mess with your self-esteem.
Absolutely.
So what's the alternative?
Right.
If we're moving away from these rigid definitions of masculinity,
Yeah.
what does healthy masculinity even look like?
Well, a lot of the comments actually point to some really positive aspects of masculinity.
Okay.
Things like strength, courage, resilience, a sense of responsibility.
Okay. But it's about reframing those qualities.
Exactly.
Like strength isn't about suppressing your emotions.
Right.
It's about having the courage to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and ask for help when you need it.
And responsibility isn't just about providing for your family financially.
Right.
It's about being emotionally present in your relationship.
Right. Being a good partner, a good father, a good friend.
Exactly.
Treating others with respect and empathy.
Yeah, regardless of gender or sexuality.
So maybe it's not about getting rid of masculinity completely,
Right.
but more about expanding it,
Yeah.
making it more inclusive and flexible.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, recognizing that there are many ways to be a man.
Right. And none of them are better or worse than others.
And for anyone listening who might be struggling with these expectations,
Yeah.
just remember, you're not alone.
Absolutely.
There are so many men out there who are challenging these norms
For sure.
and redefining what it means to be a man on their own terms.
And ultimately, the most manly thing you can do
Yeah,
is to be true to yourself.
right.
Embrace your individuality and treat others with kindness and compassion.
I love that.
Oh.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I hope it's given you all some food for thought
Yeah.
and maybe even sparked some conversations about masculinity in your own life.
If you're interested in learning more,
Yeah.
we encourage you to check out the resources in the show notes.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Yeah.
don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends and family.
That's right.
You can find us on most podcast platforms as Voices of the Soul.
And for even more thought-provoking content, check out our YouTube channel.
Shauna Pelage.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening, everyone.